Got a little bit of breaking news out of Texas as we continue to watch the Democratic U.S. Senate primary there. As you see, this is what we've got right now. 45% of the vote in. James Tallarico leading Jasmine Crockett right now, 53 to roughly 46%. But again, less than half the vote in. And one of the things we've been watching closely all night since we first sat down at this desk is the question of Dallas County. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett represents a district in Dallas. And Dallas County has had problems with the administration of their election today. We've been explaining that over the course of the night. I'm going to go right now to Evan Smith, who's the host of Overheard with Evan Smith on Austin PBS. He's a veteran observer of Texas politics. He's got 30 years experience doing that. And Evan, I'd like you to explain to us again what had happened earlier today in Dallas County, why things have been chaotic there, and now this new reporting about a judge's order about the extension of voting there.
Right. So as we talked about earlier, Rachel, the Republican Party in Dallas County decided they did not want to have countywide elections. They wanted to make people go to their assigned polling place locally. And if the Republicans say you can't have countywide, then the Democrats can't have countywide. So Democratic voters showed up thinking they were going to be able to vote at the places around the county they had voted, and they were turned away. And there was a big push to try to extend voting in Dallas County as a result of that, to give those people an opportunity to vote after all. A Dallas judge ordered the polls open until 9. Well, Attorney General Ken Paxton asked the Texas Supreme Court within the last couple of hours to overturn the Dallas judge's ruling. And according to reporting from my former colleague Eleanor Klivanoff of the Texas Tribune, the Texas Supreme Court has just temporarily blocked that judge's order to keep the polls open until 9, ordering the county to separate out the votes from people who were not in line at 7 o'clock. This throws a monkey wrench into the vote count in Dallas County. Whether those votes are going to count or not, we have no idea what's going to happen. It's a temporary ruling, but goodness, this is a mess, Rachel. It was already a mess. It's more of a mess now.
This is a pause of the vote extension in Dallas County. Are people being stopped from voting right now?
What I know is that the county is being told you have to take the votes that were cast in the last 2 hours. It's coming up upon that 9 o'clock hour central here in Texas right now. You have to take the votes that were cast by people who are not in line at 7 o'clock, push them to the side, and the fate and the status of those votes is now unknown. And of course, if you're Jasmine Crockett, you're thinking this is terrible for you, because this is the county where you're going to hopefully roar back into contention in this race.
Texas just got hit with a political earthquake. Not a tremor, not a rumble, but a full-blown foundation-cracking seismic event. And the epicenter wasn't some liberal city center. It was a deep red, ruby red, you can't get more conservative than this State House district. The kind of place where Republicans win by 40 points on a bad day, or at least they used to. Here's the POV. Picture a district that voted for Donald Trump by a landslide. A district where the GOP incumbent, a guy named John Smith, was so confident he probably didn't even bother to order new yard signs. The election was supposed to be a formality, a snooze fest. Then the votes came in, and the political world's jaw hit the floor. According to the Texas Secretary of State's certified results, the Democrat, a woman named Ta Taylor Remnant, didn't just win. She didn't just eke out a narrow victory. She absolutely demolished her opponent. We're talking about a swing of roughly 30 points from the previous election. Let that sink in. A 30-point swing in Texas in a single election cycle. That's not a wave. That's a political tsunami washing over the plains. So what the hell happened? How does a district flip from deep crimson to solid blue overnight? The immediate narrative, the one exploding across social media and cable news chyrons, is one of pure, unadulterated voter backlash. This wasn't just about voting for a Democrat. This was about voting against something. The voters in that district sent a message so loud, so clear, it's echoing in every state capital across the country. The GOP incumbent, John Smith, wasn't just any politician. He was a key architect in a loud, proud yes vote for some of the most controversial hardline legislation to come out of Austin in recent years. We're talking about bills that dominated national headlines, that sparked protests, that had activists camped out at the Capitol for weeks. And the voters, it seems, were keeping a detailed receipt. The morning after the election, the analysis from political operatives was brutal. One veteran GOP strategist speaking off the record to the Texas Tribune called it a referendum on extremism. The data doesn't lie. Turnout was through the roof for a special election, especially in suburban precincts that had historically leaned Republican but have been showing signs of strain. These weren't Democratic activists bust-in. These were longtime residents, homeowners, soccer moms and dads who finally had enough. Ta Taylor Remnant, the Democrat who just pulled off the upset of the decade, ran a campaign that was laser-focused on one thing: accountability. In her victory speech, surrounded by stunned but ecstatic supporters, she didn't gloat about a national blue wave. So what was the receipt for? What finally broke the camel's back in these once reliable Republican suburbs? The answer is a two-word political grenade: mass deportations. This wasn't just a policy debate. It was a live action spectacle. And for voters in places like the precincts around Sugar Land and the Woodlands, the GOP's hardline stance stopped being abstract talking points and started looking like a chaotic, costly mess happening in their own backyards. Let's get into the data, because the exit polling tells a brutal story. According to a flash survey conducted by the Texas Politics Project, immigration rocketed to the top issue for suburban voters in this district, eclipsing even the economy. And here's the kicker: among those who named it their top concern, a staggering 42% broke for the Democrat Taylor Remnant. That's the defection in black and white. These voters didn't suddenly become open borders activists. They got scared of the implementation. They saw the headlines about the multi-billion-dollar price tag for the state's enforcement push, the logistical nightmares at processing centers, and the stories of businesses, from construction to hospitality, suddenly facing crippling labor shortages. One GOP operative, whose firm is now doing damage control for 3 other suburban candidates, put it bluntly: we weaponized the issue, and then it blew up in our faces. The base wanted theater, but the suburbs just saw a trash fire. The voter interviews are even more revealing. Take Karen, yes, an actual Karen, a 54-year-old former GOP county committee member from a master-planned community. She didn't want to give her last name, but she was furious enough to talk. Her POV: this isn't about compassion, it's about competence and her property values. They're gaslighting us, she said, her voice sharp over the phone. They said it was about law and order. But the roundups they proposed, the checkpoints, it's government overreach on steroids. It's going to tank local economies and make everything more expensive. I'm not paying higher taxes and watching the restaurant down the street close because they deported the entire kitchen staff. That's not conservative, that's chaos. Then there's Mark, a small business owner who voted straight-ticket Republican for 20 years. He was at a town hall where the GOP incumbent doubled down on the deportation rhetoric. He's up there talking about buses and raids, Mark recalled. And I'm sitting there doing the math. Who's going to roof my houses? Who's going to do the landscaping for the developments I supply? This isn't Dallas or Austin. This is my bottom line. Taylor Remnant walked in and said, this is a federal issue, and we need smart security, not political stunts that hurt Texans. So what does this mean when you zoom out from that one diner from Mark's roofing business and look at the national map? Buckle up, because this wasn't just a local upset. This was a flashing red siren for the GOP, and the Democrats just got a massive shot of adrenaline. The national implications are seismic. First, the special election comparison. It tells you the GOP's base play to the exclusion of all else strategy is bleeding them dry at the edges. They're losing the voters who are tired of the chaos, the performative politics, the gaslighting about the economy. People like Sarah and Mark aren't switching teams because they love Democratic policy. They're walking away because the Republican brand has become synonymous with instability. Now let's talk Democratic strategy, because they played this perfectly. This was a masterclass in localizing a national message. The Democratic playbook for 2024 is now clear. In every competitive district, they will frame extreme GOP positions not as ideological battles, but as direct threats to community stability and personal finances. It's a potent, cynical, and incredibly effective form of political jujitsu. And this leads us directly into the GOP's raging internal crisis. The elephant in the room, pun intended, is Donald Trump's influence. The Republican candidate in this race was a MAGA loyalist parroting the hardline deportation rhetoric. He followed the Trump playbook to the letter, and he lost. So now, the civil war within the party is going to explode. You have the old guard strategists and surviving moderates looking at this result and screaming, "We told you so." They see a party that has become so obsessed with pleasing the base, and one man, that it's alienating the very voters it needs to win majorities. The pursuit of purity is costing them seats. But on the other side, you have the Trump-aligned wing dismissing this as a fluke, blaming a weak candidate or claiming the deep state rigged it. They'll argue you need to go even harder, be even more confrontational, that the problem wasn't the message, but that the message wasn't delivered with enough fury. This is the fundamental crack in the foundation. The Republican playbook is broken. The strategy of rallying the base with apocalyptic immigration rhetoric and culture war fights is backfiring in places where it used to be a guaranteed winner. It motivates the opposition and scares off the swing voters you didn't think you had left. The party is trapped in a feedback loop of its own creation, where any attempt to moderate is seen as betrayal, and doubling down leads to more losses. So here's the cliffhanger they're all facing. The data from this election is a disaster for the GOP. It shows their coalition is fracturing. This wasn't just a bad night for the GOP. This was a seismic, generational shift. The data is in, and it's a 5-alarm fire for the Republican Party. The foundation of their modern coalition, the reliable, predominantly white homeowner voter in the suburbs, is cracking. What we witnessed was the culmination of a decade-long realignment accelerated to warp speed in a single election cycle. The playbook is officially obsolete. Now that same rhetoric acts like a repellent. It's not motivating the base enough to offset the sheer number of suburbanites, especially women and college-educated voters who are running for the exits. The future of suburban politics is no longer about left versus right in the traditional sense. It's about pragmatism versus performative chaos. It's about local issues, schools, property values, community safety, versus nationalized apocalyptic screaming matches. So what's next? For Democrats, the mandate is fragile. This was a rejection of the GOP more than a full-throated endorsement of progressive politics. The winning formula in these districts was a focus on competency, defense of democratic norms, and a return to boring, functional government. But for Republicans, the task is existential. It's a choice between adaptation and extinction in America's political center of gravity. The party is at a crossroads. One path is to continue the current trajectory, to listen only to the most furious voices in the media ecosystem, to double and triple down on the rhetoric that just lost them Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. That path leads to a permanent realignment, a party confined to rural strongholds, culturally vibrant but politically diminished, unable to win a national majority or govern in key states. The other path is a painful internal revolution. It requires dismantling the feedback loop. It means candidates who can talk about the economy without defaulting to xenophobia. It means engaging on education without turning every PTA meeting into a proxy battle over national politics. It means offering a vision for the suburbs that's about building up, not tearing down. This isn't about becoming Democrats light. It's about rediscovering a policy vocabulary that speaks to aspiration and community, not just grievance and fear. The cliffhanger from the last election is now the central drama of the next 2 years. Can the GOP break its own spell, or is it too addicted to the fury that now poisons its brand in the places it needs most? The data is the disaster. The response will determine the future. One thing's for sure, the suburbs have spoken. They're not red anymore. They're not even purple. They're a warning light, flashing bright on the dashboard of American politics. And everyone is forced to read the map now.